Lonesome Lands podcast, Lonesome Report. I almost said October, November 4th, 2:08 p.m. But it's really what? 1:08 p.m. since we just had daylight savings. You want to hear something funny to get this ball rolling?
I think it's actually 308.
I
Didn't
don't
we
I
fall
see.
back?
Yeah, see, I don't know. I don't even
Yeah.
care. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's 3:08. But so last night, which would have been Monday, my daughter says, uh, she goes, the clock in my car was wrong. Is it daylight savings or something? It had been 2 days since daylight savings. She had no idea. As kids
Uh,
these days, everything just switches automatically. Like she woke up, or she looked at her phone clock or whatever. Anyway, go to lonesomelands.com, click on support to keep us doing what we do. And thanks to everybody who's done that and everybody who's bought merch. Little behind on merch shipping. We'll get that out here in the next couple days. So you should all see it next week. All right. Last week we ended with kind of the entire episode was about the whole dust up with Donald Trump, and he sent out the tweet that so a lot of people I put Donald or President Trump attacks the cattle industry. Have you
right.
seen many of the contact comments? A lot of the comments were he didn't attack. He didn't attack. So I guess
No,
maybe you don't think he attacked? He said
I,
cattle ranchers do not understand. Like
right.
and it was very pointed and whatever. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I make headlines uh for people to click on just like every other, I don't know. I just felt like that was enough of an attack. Cattle ranchers do not understand their own industry. That's kind of what it was, right? Is that not an attack?
I don't know.
Moving on. But we spent the whole time kind of digging into why he did that and what was behind it. And it had been reported that a cattle industry group refuse. I said some people didn't like the fact that I said refused, which they were invited to the White House, to the Oval Office for the announcement of the beef industry plan, and they apparently didn't refuse to go. They just didn't show up or whatever, and that is what kind of caused the true social message of cattle and ranchers not understanding. Um,
Well, I think that their quote was number one, it was a gut punch, which I can see that
well, let's get into that. We gotta
it
we
was a
gotta
gut
tell
punch.
who it was,
Go
right?
ahead. Get going.
We'll get into the statement, I guess, here in a minute. But we kind of inferred that it was this common ground coalition because a lot of things had come up. There was a video that had been posted saying that they had a meeting with Trump scheduled and they were going out to DC to meet with Trump. And then they came back and no one heard anything about that meeting. And so yeah, so what came out is the Common Ground Coalition. And what I've heard a lot since we're talking about this and all that. There's a lot of people who are like, who is the Common Ground Coalition? Like it's
Yeah,
still
I've
a
had
very new
yeah.
group that
Yeah.
not a lot of people are familiar with. And what it is, it comes from the Common Ground Summit, which was put together by the LMA. And the LMA is a livestock marketing association that we've reported on in the past because they're supposedly a nonprofit. They sell insurance to sale barns. All the sale barn or a large number of sale barns are members of this association,
Mhm.
and we got into, kind of looking at their books because we were going through all this stuff, and their total revenue for last year was $10 million. This is what we've reported on them in the past. Their
Right.
total revenue was $10 million. They paid I don't know if they call him a CEO or their president or whatever it was, $1.8 million. So they pay their highest ranking person practically 20% of their total revenue, which is insane. Nobody does that. No nonprofits do that. And we brought that to light. And they never really, I guess, mention it. But they have a new person. I guess it'll be interesting to
They
see
do.
their next year's tax results. But if you're going to be a nonprofit and pay yourself and a lot of the other employees were pretty high too. But anyway, they put together the Common Ground Coalition or Summit, which was at the time they sent out. It was invite only to
Mhm.
40 industry leaders, I think is what they called them or something, people in the
Right.
cattle industry. And it was almost to a lot of us that kind of have their ear to the ground all the time. It seemed very secret. Like it all of a sudden came out on
Yeah.
Facebook that this meeting had happened and how wonderful it was that these industry leaders had all gotten together and they were going to decide policy for the cattle industry, which has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way instantly. As soon as people see that, because there are people who are presidents of cattlemen's organizations that had no idea this was going on. There were people I know that were media people that report on the livestock industry and mainly cattle, and they had no idea this was going on. But one magazine, I get them mixed up. It wasn't Western Livestock Journal. It was the other
Western
one.
Ag Reporter.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that was the one that was there and had like the full report,
Mhm.
which I think Joe Goggins is the vice president or president of the LMA. His brother owns the magazine, or runs the magazine or whatever. But, there's all this stuff that kind of rubbed people the wrong way, I think. And when you get into the meeting, it was also said that there was, they brought all these people together. They had this big meeting to decide policy, but one of the rules was there were topics that you couldn't talk about.
Right.
And
Right.
I think we'll get maybe more into who the Common Ground Coalition is in the future, but just to go through this quick, the rules you couldn't talk about were mandatory country of origin labeling on
Mhm.
beef, mandated EID tags on cattle,
Mhm.
the beef checkoff,
Right.
and like alternative marketing agreements for in the cattle industry. Those were the ones that I believe I can remember. There might have been another one I can't remember. But so the whole meeting, you couldn't talk about those things. It was all going to be about taxes and how to pass the ranches down to the next generation, and I think like
Access
insurance,
to
LRP
capital.
type of thing. Yeah,
Right.
access to capital, risk management, I think.
Risk management.
And so that all came out, and over the past year, all of this stuff has kind of come out together. Then the Bezos news of the $4.85 million that the Angus Association took in for this methane deal. It turns out a lot of the people at the Common Ground Summit are very connected to the Angus Association
Right.
or very connected to methane digesters or very, very connected to eco-friendly feedlots and all of that kind of stuff. And the main thing coming out of this, what this association wants or coalition wants, is for you to sign up. That's all. I mean, that's it. It's like sign on, give us your name so that we can take it to Washington D.C. And when you look at like what me and Shad do here every week, and I was talking about like lonesome lands, like right now, if you could say the main issues that we focus on, mandated EID tags, checkoff reform, mandated,
Cool.
yeah, mandatory country of origin labeling, packer concentration, and which goes into that AMA deal.
Truth and
So
transparency.
everything that we would want, that we talk about every week, that we want to talk about, those aren't allowed at Common Ground Coalition. So if you're wondering, and they talk about with it, this, we all need to be united. It's all about unity. And then they didn't invite anybody from RCAF, which is the second biggest cattlemen's organization in the country, and the only one I think that doesn't get checkoff dollars. Is that right? Um, and so, yeah. Anyway, that's who didn't show up for the for the president's meeting.
Right.
And that's who Common Ground Coalition is. And so, and at the end of the meeting, or at the end of the last podcast, we said, it's easy to be transparent. It's easy to come out and say what you want to say. And then, I did make a Facebook post where I put up, and I put a video from Buffalo Livestock Market, which is a gal talking about the Trump meeting. And I said, since Common Ground Coalition likes to tout transparency, maybe they could fill us in. Who were the other industry leaders that met with President Trump? What was discussed? Because they said they were meeting along with other industry leaders, which made me think NCBA people, which one of the people um, in DC with Common Ground Coalition is a past president of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Anyway, and then another question was what was discussed, what specifically caused the president to send a seemingly irate social media message to all American ranchers, And I said, lastly, is there a way for people who signed up to have their names removed? And I sent that out. And then a few days later, after the podcast and after I sent this out, Jake Parnell of the Common Ground Coalition, so all credit to him, he came out and was transparent with his thoughts, and said that they were the ones who did not choose to attend.
Right.
I guess, I don't know how long the video was. He got into a lot of different things. I guess Shad, I've been blabbing long enough. What?
Well, I mean, I watched his video and he said, a lot of very transparent things and that they were the group. I don't think that they went out specifically to meet with Trump. They had a group of legislators that they had um, scheduled a meeting with, which included Secretary Rollins, and sounds like they had a couple of hours of really good meetings talking about the issues. And then the invitation, this is the way I understand it, the invitation was secondary to the White House, to the Oval Office. And that was, I don't know what they thought was going to be discussed there, but their concern was that there was going to be an announcement. And so that announcement made them question, like, what is the announcement going to be? Is it something that we can support? Now, let's back up because, in my opinion, I don't know what the announcement would be, but if I had a chance to get into the Oval Office, I would dang sure go, especially if I was with a group of my peers that are recognized as industry leaders. I think that, their the response came from Trump after that. That is why President Trump put that True Social um, tweet or whatever it is post out. Jake did say it was a gut punch, which it ended up being a gut punch. It hurt the markets. We were down 5 out of 6 days there, and down the limit 4 out of 5 days. It was big. It was a gut punch. However, I think that in my opinion, when they decide to say that the president was made an irresponsible statement, I think that went a little far. Instead of not meeting with him, they should have gone in and met with him, and maybe that True Social post would have never come out. I mean, it wouldn't have even been um, considered. My, I think my whole issue on this deal is not that they weren't there talking policy. It just feels like, of course, we know Jack Payne has been an outspoken critic of the Common Ground Coalition. We had Hayden Ballard, who was also there in DC with Jack Payne, and Hayden Ballard is a super great lawyer. He is the up and coming lawyer for land rights concerning BLM, federal and state lands in the West. He's the guy, right? He's the guy we're going to have to depend on. And so that's why he was there. They were talking all these different issues. But I feel like, Jim, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the whole reason they didn't go is because of Jack and Hayden being in the Oval Office because they were invited to this announcement, right?
Yeah. And
And
Jack is the number one very outspoken critic of
correct,
Common Ground Coalition.
right.
And even and Jack is a friend of ours, so we're able to kind of, yeah, I mean, and like he says on Facebook too, you don't have to guess what he's thinking ever. Yeah, like he puts it out
No.
there. And this common ground thing, one of the things he said is we have no hidden agenda in his video. But the way that they operate makes you think, I guess maybe one, if this is their agenda, it's not really hidden, that maybe this was put together so that people don't talk about EIDs, don't talk about MCOOL, don't talk about checkoff reform, don't talk about cattle marketing agreements.
Uh-huh.
That's not a hidden agenda. That is the agenda. Number one thing, we're not talking about that stuff. So they're going to DC with this cattlemen's coalition with all of these signatures saying, we don't want to talk about these things. And so my question, and so a number of people have said, well, we should have Jake Parnell on. Anybody from Common Ground Coalition
Absolutely.
is invited on. We haven't, like, as far as me and Chad's deal, we haven't ever like interviewed anyone until this past week with Harriet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Jake Parnell is happy to come on. Jim at lonesomelands.com. That's how you can get a hold of me. You probably find my number from a number of different people. But the thing is, we're going to talk about those things. Like that's what we talk about.
Well,
And we're
let's
also going to
talk
talk.
about their policy. So they have these, bullet points of policies, and they're all good policies. They're things that we are concerned about in the beef industry, but those are all long-term policy moves, right? In the interim, in the short term, these policies that are important to producers right now, that are affecting their lives right now. EID, they don't want to talk about that. Mandatory country of origin labeling, they don't want to talk about it. If they want to unify, let's get together and talk about these things. The checkoff reform, we need checkoff reform. There's so much that's out of control. That's an immediate need right now. Alternative marketing agreements, that has led us down to this road of where we're at now. And these are immediate policy issues that need to be talked about right now. And
And
so,
the other issue that I would add to that list, which I'm sure what maybe they do want to talk about it, is methane digesters and methane collection.
yeah.
And the feedlots that are putting those
Well,
things
maybe
in.
that's going to all come to an end now that Bill Gates has decided climate change isn't going to kill us. I mean,
Right.
this is the crap that we're flying all over the place with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so anyway, but I mean, the other thing that's kind of a head scratcher, and it's almost kind of ironic, I think. I always worry if I'm using that right, but it's like their whole thing, and in his video he went into this, like their whole thing is access to capital, access to land, risk management, how to keep families on the land. The actual announcement that they didn't show up to was a plan to do all of those things.
Exactly.
I mean, so it's almost like, and I'm just now I'm like, I better check their Facebook. So I'm scrolling through their Facebook and everything that they put out. I don't see a single thing about this beef industry plan.
Well,
They
how
have,
could you see it? I mean, nobody knows about the beef industry plan because President Trump posted on Truth Social into reaction of being disappointed from ranchers, and it covered the plan totally up, and it's a good
right.
plan. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
studied it
But
a
if you
lot.
want that kind of stuff out there, put the plan out and give us your opinion on it.
Absolutely.
I mean, and because it does go into each of those things. And if you think what they're doing is good, if you think what they're doing is bad, like we've posted it on Facebook, and another thing about the plan is Jack Payne was involved with putting it together. I don't know how much or what all, he had his input, but he definitely had met with the secretary, and he had flown out to DC no number of times now on his dime. AJ Richards has been a big factor in all of this, and they are all flying with their own money, and trying to put all this together. And so it'd be interesting to see what the Common Ground Coalition thinks of the actual plan that came out that kind of hits
Right.
on all of their objectives.
All of their points, their bullet points in the
Yeah.
plan are very similar.
And so just to not even mention that,
I
it's
know.
just it's kind of like, I don't know.
I know.
I
It
just
really
don't
is.
understand. And I talked about this at the deal I did in Wyoming,
Mhm.
where I gave a speech, and I'll try to have it up this week. It's been a month, but we've been doing harvest, and we're just had all kinds of stuff going on, and I haven't had a chance to get it on YouTube yet. But the whole kind of point of my speech I recently gave in Wyoming is we're in a whole different area now where we don't every person in the country pretty much has a computer in their pocket, and they can find all with this AI and everything coming on, we can find out all sorts of information and be the most informed people ever, in this country. And we can also use that computer in our pocket to call our representatives and our senators. And if you talk to any representatives or senators, they will say the best way to do it is call their office. If you are a person, it's not to sign up for a coalition and put your name down so other people can go to DC and tell um, politicians what you want to have done. You can call them just as easy. It takes like 5 minutes. You say, I'm this, I'll say, I'm Jim Mundorf from McClellan, Iowa. If it's a cattle issue, I'm part of a cattle producer,
Mhm.
and I'm for the mandatory, I'm for Harriet Hageman's
Hmm.
mandatory country of origin labeling bill, or I'm for Mike Round's labeling act. It's in the Senate. And so those are the things to do. I got a phone call from a state rep from Idaho a few weeks ago, and he was like, when individual people call me, it's so much more, it means so much more than when I talk to a lobbyist. He goes, my back comes up when I hear from a lobbyist. And what this Common Ground Coalition kind of is, it's the same thing. It's like you're going to DC with this group that you represent. You're kind of like a lobbyist. Like I mean, who really, I don't know. It just, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but the whole way it was put together, invite only. You're making sure you invite people that are going to unify, right? Or maybe aren't going to bristle up when you say we can't talk about EIDs. That's why I think no RCAP members were invited and all that.
I'm an
So
RCAP
anyway, I feel like we
member.
spent too much time on this already because we spent all of last week on it. But just to kind of
Well,
wrap that deal up.
and let's just end it with this. Because all of that hubbub happened, that's when Harriet Hageman reached out to us and said, "Hey, we need to talk about all of this stuff," and that's why we did the special report.
Right. Yes. And I guess to also, the one thing that was mentioned in that Parnell video was that a young lady was attacked from a livestock market. I don't know what he's talking about. And I don't know if that's, I mean, we posted the video and asked those questions. I went through the comments. She was very supported in her video's comments. No one attacked her in where I posted the video. But, that's kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to get into it. But he said people suggested she had a hidden agenda or anything. All she did was talk about the meeting that they had
Yeah, I
scheduled
don't
with
know how
Trump.
she would have a hidden agenda. She
I
just
don't know
talked
who
about the facts.
questioned. I mean, she did. Well, I mean, one thing she did say that she said, have your voice heard. I guess I will
Mhm.
say something about what she said. She said the way to have your voice heard is to sign up for the Common Ground Coalition. That is it. Like, if that's me, that is not how my voice would get heard. If I signed up for that thing, my voice is get rid of mandated EID tags,
Mhm.
institute a mandatory country of origin label, reform the beef checkoff, right? All these things that they don't want. It's almost like taking your voice away. If you believe in those things and you want your legislatures to hear about those things from someone who represents the livestock industry, don't sign up for that thing. You know what I mean? Because they're going to go to DC and they're not going to talk about it. And the
Well, I
other
think what
question
you,
I would have for them is what happens when you're sitting there with Harriet Hageman, who has the mandatory country of origin label bill, and
right?
she says, "What do you guys think of mandatory country of origin label?" Like, do you say, "Well, we're not allowed to talk
It's not
about it"?
on our policy.
Right? Yeah, we can't talk about that. I mean, because they're in DC and these people are getting phone calls. I know about the country of origin label. What do you say when that comes up, or the EID thing, or and that just goes into like, sign up for this thing and we'll represent you. Well, how are you representing MCool? Because you can't just ignore it, right? It's a very big issue right now. Anyway,
Very, yeah, it's very big. But what you're talking about, it just kind of come into my mind is the difference between freedom and liberty. And you're free to sign up, you're free to support that, but liberty promotes the rights of the individual, and that's what you're talking about here is the individual versus the group kind of mantra of sign up, follow us, we'll take the lead, but you're not welcome if you want to talk about what we
well,
consider
you're not welcome unless
controversial.
you're invited. That's the thing.
Well,
Like
that's
if
true. Well, no, 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 not necessarily. I mean,
well
they
to the
want you.
meeting, like right, like how many organ political or associations or anything have a meeting and you have to have an invite to show up. And the reason,
The initial meeting, correct?
right, to
Yeah.
have any say in what's going on there.
Well,
And
and
there's
I
no
guess my
votes. There,
question is to you is if you do sign up, what are the aspects that are going to benefit you? What if I signed up with the Common Ground Coalition today? What
yeah,
how is it going to benefit me and my operation? Um, Especially, maybe these people are totally against those. I don't know where they stand on those issues, and those are
that goes
really,
into what I'm saying about your
yeah.
voice. They're saying have your voice heard. Well,
Mhm.
you don't get a voice. You don't get a vote. You don't get a vote on policy. You don't get a I mean, there's nothing that gets your voice heard. You give them your voice, is what you're doing. You're handing your voice to them by signing your name on a sheet. It's nuts. I've never even heard of anything like that. Have you? Like a group of people that are just like, okay, we've decided what policy is going to be.
Well, normally they're asking for money, and this group isn't asking for
Yeah,
money.
I guess.
It's a free membership, so that's positive.
Yeah. I mean, at least NCBA, they'll like pretend, right? Like they had their EID policy that and people voted on it and voted it down to where it had to be voluntary. So
Right.
then they went to DC and they lobbied for the government to pay for the EID tags,
And so goes the
to
danger
pay for the
of not having your
mandated
voice
EID.
heard.
Yeah. I mean, that was a good, that's almost, and it gets funny when you kind of look at this. Like, have your voice heard and sign up for this. How do you get your voice heard? It's not your
Well,
voice.
I
And then we
mean,
have this beef, and then you go into the announcement that they skipped out on.
I
It
can't
hit
believe
all
they skipped
everything
out
that
on
they're
that.
going for.
I know. Even if, I thought about it last week and I'm like, Shad, if Joe Biden had invited you to the White House, would have you gone? And I'm like, yeah,
Oh yeah.
I really would have.
If Kamala Harris got elected and invited me to go to the White House, I would have.
I would have not, and I would have never questioned, you know, up front, if somebody calls me, I'm not going to say, well, what is the announcement? What are you going to talk about? And that dictates whether I'm coming or not. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it was a power move. I don't know. I don't know, but I want to say this, if we're going to talk about unity, the issues divide us, and that is okay. That is what makes us live in a republic style, country, right? We have the ability to discuss, discourse conveniently, nicely, all of that. That's what makes us who we are. But overall, I believe the people of agriculture are united. I mean, Jake said it on his video. I still support President Trump. And we talked about this last week, Jim, because I hate communism. And I see the overall picture. I see beyond my industry. I see what we're losing socially, economically, freedom wise, liberty wise. And so I think, America is still united. American producers are still united. We all still love the Constitution and liberty and freedom. And we love President Trump, even though he made this tweet. But we're always going to be divided on issues because we're all individuals, right? And
And
all of our issues are important. All of these issues are important. They're important to every single person. And so if you're going to take a stand for MCool or against MCool, the to relay the message to the people properly is to come together and talk about it.
and I think you can look at what happened the year before, right? 1 year earlier, they had an EID tag policy at the National Cattlemen's Beef Association that wanted to mandate EID tags on all cattle. And the cattle industry kind of united against that,
They did.
right? Like, I think if you talk to the majority of, if you took a poll of every cattle producer out there, should EID tags be mandated? I'm pretty sure you would get a real strong majority against that.
No, that's
Um,
right.
and so the policy got shut down. 1 year later, we have a common ground coalition, and one of the policies you cannot talk about is a mandated EID tag. Well, we kind of had unity on that a year earlier where we didn't want that.
Mhm.
And now we can't talk about that. I mean
Mhm.
that's this kind of thing. But in the group that does want that are the corporate people, right? The big wig. It's almost like an oligarchy, right? We have this group of big wigs, the big time, and they all seem to be associated with the methane collection and
Yeah,
the
it's
data
just a
collection and the
it's pay to play. It's follow the money all day
big
long.
video sales. They all
Yep.
kind of have the same ties, and they want to be your voice in Washington D.C. So anyway, moving on.
Interesting.
Um, we got
Whew.
to interview Harriet Hageman.
Yeah, we did.
So I guess, and that was great. I guess you can go in on that. You're our old
Well,
pal.
there's really, we got a lot of views on that, and that was great. Harriet Hageman, Wyoming's lone representative, contacted us, and said, "I want to come on and I want to get some things cleared up." And we took a little heat on it a little bit. I've seen a
We did?
few. Well, I seen a couple.
Well,
I
she
don't
has her
usually.
haters. She has
Yeah,
her.
she.
There,
I mean, listen, Wyoming is being inundated
it's
with
not
the
even
left.
Wyoming. The people
No.
know that she's a supporter of President Trump, and
Yes,
so
absolutely.
they follow her around and comment on everything she does.
Absolutely. But anyway, we had a great discussion, and she just, we talked about President Trump, and we talked about these things that EID and MCOOL and the Checkoff. Which, by the way, I want to go back and say something about the Checkoff today. The Checkoff come out on Facebook in support of Secretary Rollins' continued border closure. So just a real quick update here. The board was up big yesterday. Today, this morning, it was up big again. And then rumors started flying because Rollins was in Mexico yesterday negotiating ag trade issues. And the rumors started flying here today. I had people reaching out to me that they thought she's going to open the border, which is not the case. And that rumor, it spreads like wildfire in agriculture. And we went from $3, $4 to $5 up in the feeder market today to down 7.5. So that swing was the value of that swing just exponentially unbelievable. And so rumors are running that. But the good news was our beef checkoff today was one time I agreed with the beef checkoff. They come out and said Secretary Rollins is not opening the border until the screw worm is pushed closer back down to the
They said
dairy
that? Like
animals.
I read the
They
post
sure did.
that Jack reposted, but I
Okay.
didn't get that they were in support of the border closure. They what they did was they put in how much the screwworm costs cattle producers and had a few facts like that in there. I don't think they outright said we are for the border being closed.
Well,
Let me read it.
you can interpret it how you want to interpret it. I mean, I guess they didn't come out and say that, but they did say bring up the negatives in it, right? So that was
All right. Though
yeah, we're good,
eradicated, all right, hold on. Though eradicated in the U.S., New World screwworm is
right?
resurging in Mexico and Central America, and it poses a real threat to our herds. And then it gives a list of three bullet points. It
Four
costs the
bullet
U.S.
points.
livestock industry 100 million a year. In 2023, cases surged across Central America and Mexico.
That's right.
Reintroduction could mean quarantines, movement restrictions, major losses. Prevent it. Treat wounds fast, high risk procedures, and watch for maggots, odor, or unusual behavior. Know the signs, take action.
Yeah, I think that was a good post for them to
Yeah, but it's
reassure
more informative than. Yeah, I
a
agree.
stance. You're saying it's more informative than taking a stance,
Yeah.
but there wasn't a lot of. I mean, I thought it was a decent post
Oh,
from
yeah, for sure.
Checkoff.
For sure. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not saying it's a bad post.
So anyway, back to Harriet Hageman. We enjoyed having her on. She's a blessing to our industry. She's a blessing to our country. She is a constitutional scholar. She's a property rights expert, and she is an American hero. And I can't thank her enough. And she's got great staff. I don't know them all. I know Carly Miller and Trinity Lewis, both fantastic people who kind of made that happen. And this was really geared for, information for President Trump and Secretary Rollins and the rest of the ag industry. And it was fantastic. And I'm still kind of on cloud nine for having her on.
Right on. Yeah, go check that out. We'll put it in the description. Put
Yeah,
a link in the description.
absolutely.
Angus Association, American Angus Association, had a convention this week where we've already talked about how this year they took in $4.85 million from the Bezos Earth Fund to create or research a line of genetics that would be become an EPD, which would uh, be a reduction of methane, Like they want to create a line of cattle that create less methane. Sorry.
Correct.
Sometimes it's hard to spit things out. Did you read that Jack put that up this week? He was on podcast with AJ, which you should go check out. AJ Richards, and he said things are a lot easier to write down than they are to spit out. And I'm like, yeah, I know it. This has been a learning experience, learning how to spit things out. Anyway, American Angus Association. Yeah. And so what they had was they had five new board member positions up for election. They had five people who were against the Bezos Earth Fund money run for those board seats. And then they against the five members who were already there, who were part of the board when they accepted that money.
Mhm.
The only people that are allowed to vote are delegates, which I
Okay.
believe 290, I think, is how many national delegates, and each state gets a
Wow.
certain number of delegates.
Okay.
Um, and so, and I think delegates get elected also. It's kind of a confusing system, but
I'm sure your
anyway,
delegates get elected on the state level.
the five guys who were against the methane, which are, Brooke Miller, I've had on the podcast, who's great. Brian Palmer, who started this main push against this Bezos money, which me and Shad have gotten to know. And then sorry, I forget the other names. Do you remember who the other
I
ones
don't.
were?
Mm-mm.
But anyway, they all got rejected or voted down. They kept all the same people. It kind of business as usual at the Angus convention.
Right.
It's the good old boy network, and no new blood is coming in. And that was disappointing because we heard that there was a lot of momentum at the convention. They were able to give speeches, which were really well received by the
Really
members.
good. Yep, that's what I heard.
Yeah, and then they had a lot of kind of hope going in that maybe they could, go against this kind of oligarchy, which we've already kind of talked about, and
Right.
and they were shot down, sent home. So
That's that's the
interesting to see
word.
where
That's
that
the word.
goes. Because they're, when this money came out, when they accepted the money and then they didn't announce it for I think a few months. And so their members had absolutely no um say or anything or even know that it was happening. And when that came out, there was talk of should a new association get started? There was all kinds of crazy talk. So now and I think the people against it kind of thought, well, let's go to the convention and see if we can make a difference there. And now that that's over, and they made no difference
Well,
because
I would like to know, number one, how many people were at the convention. Number two, how the delegates are selected. I'm sure they're selected on a state level. I don't know that for sure. But considering the Bezos Earth Fund gift of millions of dollars, I thought really at that convention there would be a larger outcry. And to me, with these incumbents receiving their board seats and positions back, I am questioning the. It's very obvious that the membership did not have a problem with the acceptance of the money from the Bezos Earth Fund, and that they
the
have bought it in.
members don't get a vote. This is
I
the
get
delegates.
that.
You
I
know
get
how the
that.
cattle industry works, though,
I
right?
get that.
Like the delegates are the people who the board wants to be
Correct.
delegates.
I understand that. But I thought there would be a large outcry from the membership. And I would like to know how many members across the nation that the Angus Association has and how many showed up to their convention. If they were, if there was a huge outcry, you would have heard about it. And I mean, there you go. I don't know.
There you go.
By
Well,
the way, Brooke Rollins today is meeting with the King family in Washington. The Department of Ecology in Washington State charged the King Family Ranch, $267,000 fine for cleaning out 6.3 acres of stock ponds to catch water. And so, and they're being charged. They are considering criminal charges against them as well. So Brooke Rollins found out about that through our friend Keely Cavello. And I wrote a letter for the Kings as well to Secretary Rollins, and she met with them this morning. I just got a text. Meeting went great.
All right. So there you go. American Unwon. If you want to,
Yes.
Keely's written about this issue. But that's, and it goes back to what it reminds me of. We talk about this beef plan, and it comes out just the fact that this, and a lot of people are, oh, this is a big nothing burger. Who cares? This doesn't do anything for us. The fact that we have a USDA ag secretary that is reaching out to the beef industry and independent producers mainly, this isn't the lobbyists, this isn't the corporates, which has been the main focus of the USDA for my lifetime. We
Hmm.
now have a ag secretary that actually cares about small independent farmers and ranchers.
Hmm.
And she's showing that all the time. The Maud family, this King deal, the Henry family, we never updated that. The Henry
Yep. The
farm
hint.
in New Jersey, which we've
That's right.
been accused of not caring about the East Coast, which
Have
sorry.
we?
Yeah, I've seen yeah, some people have said
Well,
that. Which
let's do better to be
I know
on the
we are
coasts.
very we stand with our New Jersey farmers.
Well, we do. And let me just tell our listeners, we are both producers and we are running ragged, especially
Yeah.
you just getting out of harvest. I'm putting calves
Well,
together. It's wild and crazy, and we're doing our very best. But they're right. We've got to cover this whole nation. Thankful for America Unwon on the West Coast, right? I mean, that
yeah.
she's fantastic.
I don't know if
But
she's the one. No, I don't remember how the ag secretary heard about the Hunter Henry family, but that might have been Keeley too.
I think it was Keeley and Amanda Radke, actually.
Okay, there you go.
And
In
and
other
they got that
independent
stopped. They
producers,
they got that stopped. I mean,
yeah,
they
they
have
get to
given up
keep their
their.
farm.
That's right. They're going to keep their farm, and that is fantastic.
And so
So,
all of those things just get us excited for this kind of
yeah,
stuff. Like we are going from an administration that's whole focus was climate change and and
communism.
measuring greenhouse gas emissions from farmers and ranchers. And
Absolutely.
now we have a USDA that is focused on independent farmers and ranchers doing what they can for these issues and closing the border. All of this kind of stuff is kind of pointed in the right direction. So we get excited about that stuff
I'm
because
excited
when
about
you've
it.
focused on, when you're coming out of this Biden administration and you come into this, it's just such a 180. And then people read the plan and be like, this don't do nothing. They should have this. They should be doing this. I mean, it's not just a start, it's like a gigantic leap forward from where we were before. So we get excited about it.
No, and
Um,
it's pro agriculture, pro liberty, pro American farmer and rancher. And everything from the last administration was anti liberty, anti farmer, anti
yeah.
production. Everything was, it's just,
Anti-independence. Yeah, they
yes,
wanted everyone to be dependent on this whole climate deal.
exactly. And that is not a political position. Those are pointed facts.
And Shad
They
has
were,
practically spent his lifetime covering this stuff. I've
well,
spent like the last 8 years looking at it. And when you do that consistently, and you're just like, I mean, last year at this time, I guess last year at this, we were a day before the election, right? The election's
yes,
tomorrow, or no, it's today.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right. Happy anniversary, I guess. Trump
Amen.
election.
America
Um,
changed a year ago today.
But yeah, I mean, how nervous, we were thinking about what a Kamala Harris ag
Oh,
USDA would be. I mean, things like that. And so you can't just have that short of a memory where you're like, well, Brooke Rollins, this, we see those things. This is a nothing burger, or there
well,
ain't anything in here for me,
I'll
or,
just tell you this. In 1999, when my family went through what we went through with the State Land Board of Colorado and the Nature Conservancy, if we would have had one person from a trade association, an ag trade association, a state or a local government, just one person to say we support you, which we did not. I mean, we had a few people tell us that they supported us, but when we called on them to help us and defend us, they weren't there. So when you have, so this touches my heart extremely because Secretary Rollins understands the importance of private property under the Constitution. And what a great deal that would have been for my family, which really, honestly, in America, that was the very beginning of this stuff. We were the some of the first victims of this. And so that's why I'm really passionate about what she's doing. Now, when I talk to directly to Secretary Rollins, in Washington, D.C., she reiterated that, she had a lot of people against her. And I think anybody in that position is going to have people against her. But I would hope and pray that it is not our own people that are against her. I just think, she's her relationship with the independent producers that she's trying to forge speaks volumes for me. Speaks volumes for me. You don't have to like her. You don't have to like anything she does. But for her to be reaching out to us as people, as individual producers, man, what a win for America. So
Yeah,
that's
and
where I
if
stand.
there's one thing this podcast promotes is unity, and so we all should unify it behind behind Rollins. Um, I guess going back to that, there was a a news article that kind of yeah, I mean, people are probably tired of hearing it, but it just keeps coming up. This was out 2 days ago. They pretty much blamed Jack Payne, and we kind of didn't get into the Jack Payne thing too much about him and Hayden Ballard were the guys in the Oval
Mhm.
Office for the announcement of this beef plan. And then the Common Ground said not about a photo, like their first statement
Photo
out.
op.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not about a photo op. We were doing real work, meaning Jack. I mean, you could read into that. And NCBA also put in what was theirs,
The
something
hats
about
behind the president.
yeah, something about that. But anyway, then it was Logan Ibsen. Is that? Am I getting that right? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he came out with an article in Western Livestock Journal. Is that the right one? Yes, that's the right one.
That is
Um,
correct.
and it said, "Who wins?" Right? Meaning we all
Mhm.
need to unify, and no one wins if we're not unified. And he said, "There's two sides to this story out of the White House." And then he kind of gave Common Ground's side, but he didn't name a single person from the Common Ground coalition. And then he gave Jack's, and Jack said he talked to him for quite a while. And he was told, like, one of the names was Joe Goggins that was there for the Common Ground Coalition. Jack said this guy told him he's good friends with Joe Goggins during their interview. Like, and then, so it's like, I'm good friends with this guy that you have talked bad about his association for. And so what's your side of the story? And then for Jack's side of the story, the guy, this Logan writes, I wondered if he didn't just stoke the fire under Trump. Like he pretty much blamed, which seemingly, if you read into it, like he's
Mhm.
like, this is two sides of the story, and then he gives Jack's story, and he says Jack was missing context, which Jack said he talked to him for a long time, and also he wondered if the fire wasn't being stoked under President Trump. I mean, I mean, you're pretty much blaming Jack for that tweet. I mean, it just, yeah. And then it's like his whole thing is, why can't we all just get along and unify? Well, what do you want us to do? I mean, what are you doing here? Right? I mean, it's like, it's so stupid, and it's just going to keep coming up. And I mean, I'm sure we'll get blamed for not unifying. And
Well,
I
I
mean,
guess in the article it says we do know that Senator Tim Sheehy of Montana scheduled a meeting for the Common Ground Coalition. Western Livestock Journal was told the 12 attendees hold or have held, excuse me, multiple positions for other organizations, including LMA, NCBA, USCA, and RCAF USA. I can tell you, I don't know who was there from RCAF USA that have held a position there. I don't think that that
well, I
is.
heard who they thought was there with Arca.
Who was it?
Harriet Hageman.
Is Harriet Hageman a
I don't know if she's a
member of
member or not,
RCAF?
but I had heard that that's who they said was the RCAP person, which
Well,
is
Harriet
insane.
Hag,
Like their RCAP
yeah,
was
they
not
she does
invited.
not represent RCAF USA. We
Right,
work with all kinds of legislators, and she's been a great support, but
right.
she's also been a great support of other trade
Yeah, she
organizations.
spoke at the convention. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, she can be tied to
I can't
RCAP,
even tell
but
you that she's a member. I would have to
yeah,
look that up.
which yeah, but also if you're going to tie her to RCAP, well, then you have to and say that she's part of the Common Ground Coalition. That's also tying her to Common Ground Coalition.
Well, then you
Because
have
if
to.
you said the RCAF was involved in the Common Ground, and she's the only person has any affiliation with RCAF that was involved in any of that, right?
Yeah, then we have to tie all of those common
But to
ground
me,
people
it's
back
like
to their trade organizations.
if you said, Lonesome Lands was included in the Common Ground Coalition, I would be very upset. And RCAF is now being told that they are part of the Common Ground Coalition in this news article. I would be like, that's slanderous. And I would demand a retraction if I was RCAF. Just putting that out there. That needs to be clarified. Who who was part of the Common Ground Coalition, or what RCAP person was part of the Common Ground Coalition in Washington, D.C.? Needs to be clarified. We shouldn't be guessing, but that's, I guess, what we do here. We're
Well,
just kind of talking.
I don't know. I mean, it really doesn't matter now because this thing has been written, but it is absolutely
Yeah, the
kind of a
correction. I think there's a saying about that. Like the correction, I can't remember what it is, never gets the attention of the actual. There's a real slick saying about it. I'll look it up. Maybe I'll have it next week. What else is happening? I had a list here. Should we go through it real quick?
yeah. I see.
The Meat Institute tweet. What was that? Oh yeah, they said Prime Act. It's against the Prime Act, saying that,
Correct.
which was completely incorrect. That state lockers have no inspection, which most of them have a state inspection.
Hmm.
And all the states operate differently. But what the Meat Institute is the lobbying arm of the beef packing industry.
Right.
And Thomas Massey's come out hard for the Prime Act this week, which means, when a politician starts really pushing on something, it's kind of like, oh, is he getting something going? Which means what the Prime Act would do is kind of take away all the unnecessary regulations for your local locker and allow, somebody, a local rancher, to take their meat to a local locker and then sell it locally. That's what the Prime Act's all about. And that bill has been around for a long
Yeah,
time,
it's
and
for
it is
intrastate trade.
constantly being shot down by National Cattlemen's Beef Association,
Sure.
Meats Institute. They have all their lobbyists. But as beef is taking kind of the front seat in the conversations, we're seeing that.
The unity groups.
This Bovire, which is a feed additive that reduces methane, which we've talked a lot about.
Hmm.
It was required, I believe, in Denmark, and it's been a while since I read it, but I think it's been a month since it's been required, and they're having a lot of health issues with the cattle. So that's just something that's happening. I'm just going through the list here. Data centers, which apparently this was a big article on NBC that data centers they're buying land in rural America and they're paying crazy amounts for it, but they also are requiring NDAs, non-disclosure agreements of who you're buying the land from and I guess, any information you have to sign a NDA to get these big fat checks for your land, which is farmland, mostly, farm and ranch land in rural America, which is something I guess should be looked
And
into.
the next hot button issue, and already
Yeah,
is a
it's
hot button issue, is the water.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The data centers.
Yeah.
California Prop 50. So this is happening today. So we're a little slow on this, but they're redistricting. They're trying to redistrict California where if you've looked at the map, Keely, again, American on One,
Yeah.
Keely Cavello has done great work on this because she is
She's
California,
on the job
rural America.
24/7, man.
And she says, she's kind of convinced me too. California is worth saving, especially rural America or rural California. And then what they're doing is they're trying to redistrict to where every rural district, I think, has a large urban city in it. And so the reason they want to do that is because, the coast votes blue, and and then they can have all of the entire state turn blue if they hook these rural centers up with the cities. So
Yeah.
hopefully that doesn't happen. But I mean, all these elections today are not, I don't know what New York City's doing. There's a lot of
Oh my
weird things going
gosh.
on in politics. I'll say that.
That is a mess up in New York City. But
Good
I
luck up
saw
there, folks.
yesterday where the Jewish people come out in force against that Madami.
Yeah, the guy
That's
that hates them.
yeah. Well, I mean, I I am interested to see what's going to happen up there. That is a huge issue, and woo, I don't know how that's going to end up.
Yeah. You got anything else?
I don't have anything else. That's a lot for this week, buddy.
I know it. Hopefully next week we talk about something else. Go to lonesomelands.com, click on support, go to our store, buy some merch. Christmas is coming. I'm restocking. My hats are out, and I gotta email a couple people who've ordered hats. I'm getting new hats, probably new colors. So buy your Christmas presents and see you next week.
Adios.